Well, hello, DCO Nation. Welcome back to another DCO Live. Sorry about that, guys. I'm still getting a little adjusted here in the chair, but hey, I appreciate you guys jumping on here tonight and not running off to the NFL draft that I think is starting right now. So we're going to keep this a little bit on the shorter side because I want to go catch the draft. I know you guys probably don't know this, but I am an unfortunate Cowboy fan. So we're going to see how Jerry and them fare tonight, which I'm not really expecting too much. But try not to beat me up too much in the comments for being a Cowboys fan. But if there's any other Cowboys fans, give me a thumbs up on here, man. But Steve, glad to see you in here. Small craft angler Heath, thanks for jumping in here, buddy. And Dean, nice to see you. Nice to see you. So, guys, we're going to keep it pretty light tonight. And if you guys have any questions, throw them in there. Let's get a conversation going. But the first thing I wanted to talk about was some good news, a kayak safety good news. So I was just kind of scrolling through my Facebook, and I'm on all kinds of kayak sites, and this one popped up. Now, I'm not going to use the gentleman's name because I never reached out and I never got permission to use his name, but I am going to read a little bit of his story. It said that I went down to this place to fish to have a couple of relaxing days this past weekend. Well, on Friday afternoon, I capsized my kayak and was in the water about 20 minutes. My body temperature got down to 94 degrees, and they had to warm me up to 98 in the ambulance. I was extremely embarrassed, but it was the most frightened I have ever been. If I did not have my life vest on, I think it would have went a lot different. So, guys, I wanted to share that. You guys know how I am. I'm constantly pushing safety and wearing your life vest and those the PFDs. And so I wanted to share that. And he said that he was embarrassed, and he went back around and he thanked everybody that helped him out. I guess there were several people that stopped, and I think it was a pontoon boat. And you know what? So there is a picture of his kayak I just threw up there. I forgot I had that down here. But what he said thinks happened was, you can see here in the back, you guys who are on watching this, he's got two outriggers. And he said one outrigger wasn't floating right. And when he went to make a turn, it kind of dug into the water, and that's what rolled him over. So, but again, he said he was embarrassed, but he went back around. He thanked everybody that helped him out. And so, guys, that is the best story that you could have in a situation like this. So, gosh, you guys know how much I push these safety devices and stuff. So there you go. I wanted to start off with some good news, and I'm glad that guy is okay. So I wanted to jump into, I went fishing last week, and I went into Murrells Inlet. Boy, excuse me. I went into Murrells Inlet, and really I wanted to kind of hunt around for some redfish and see if the flounder bite was still on. And so I got right out at sunrise. And to back up just a little bit, I went out of oyster recycling, and the gate was closed. I was there about 20 minutes early before sunrise. Sunrise, I think, was like at 6:45. So I got there, somewhere right around 20 after 6, something like that. So usually the gate has been open, and this time it was not. And you guys know the state park rangers, they are pretty inconsistent when they close these gates and when they open them back up. So I had to wait till about 20 to 7, and the gate opened up. So I got a little bit later start than what I wanted to. It was low tide when I went out. So, that 6:45, it was low tide, the bottom of the tide. So I used that slack tide to make a big run up to some areas that I really don't fish very often, but I at least wanted to try them out. And so I made it was almost 45 minutes. It took me about, I kind of was messing around a little bit and, just kind of taking my time making my run up there, drinking some coffee, listening to morning show and, the two meatballs on in the morning. And when I got up that way, I started fishing the little Z-Man minnows in Beer Run, the little 3-inch paddle tail here. And I had it on a 1/8 ounce trout eye. You guys know the little Beer Run. There it is right there. And the little 3-inch paddle tail. And I started fishing, I'm going to call it the outside edge of this creek. It had a little bit of a bend in it. So I wanted to kind of fish that bend, and kind of the outside. So I was throwing it just short of the oyster bed or the bank or the mud bank and rolling it into a little bit deeper water. And I picked up a redfish probably within about the first 30 minutes that I was out there. And I was slow rolling him on the bottom. I was retrieving that bait just fast enough so that I wasn't getting hung up on the bottom. I could feel it tick, and I would either slow down or reel a little bit faster. And, and the redfish hit it, and he hit it pretty hard. Ended up being, I think he was 17 and a half, something like that. Can't exactly remember. And so, yeah, that was great. I am going to pause the story because Dean, I'm going to flash up Dean's question here before I forget about it. He says, Chris, do you still put in that oyster recycling and head south? The scenery seems like maybe you are elsewhere these days. Is there a reason for that? Dean, yeah, I put in at oyster recycling most of the time. And I go pretty much anywhere. It just kind of really depends on the tides and how swift those currents are going to be. So when I'm checking the tides, if I'm seeing a tide that's going to fall 5 or 6 feet, I know that those currents are really going to be ripping. So I don't want to try to pedal against those currents. Heath and, can definitely attest to that. We have been out several times where, we've made a couple of turns coming back into the landing and fighting that current, and it's brutal. So I usually try to go with the tide either way. I know last weekend the tide was only about a 3-foot tide drop. So I knew that the current wasn't going to be that strong, with it only dropping about 3 feet. So, yeah, I don't always head south. Most of the time I'll head north because 90% of Murrells Inlet is north, 10% is south or 20% is south. So, the majority of the time, when I come out of oyster recycling, I guess, left. If you guys know that area, I'll head left. But there's a lot of times that, yeah, I'll head down towards like the state park and hit around that way. So yeah, it really doesn't, make that much difference, where I go. But yeah, I appreciate that question. Thanks, Dean. So I started, to continue to work around, and the tide had just started to switch around when I caught that first redfish. And so I pushed up into this other little creek and I caught a flounder, again, slow rolling the little Beer Run minnows, and picked up a flounder. Now I was back in an area where there wasn't a lot of wind. I was pretty protected, and I was seeing a lot of fish movement, a lot of swirls, and I could tell they were redfish. So how can I tell? One of the things that you guys need to learn how to do out on the water is read the water and read the wakes of these fish. So a redfish, when it spooks and swims off, the wake will look like a big U because of the back of the way it's shaped. A lot of people refer to it as a submarine shape. And if you guys ever see videos of submarines that are surfacing or going down under the water, it pushes like a big U-shaped wake out in front of it. Well, that's what redfish look like. And it's usually a slower wake pushing away unless you absolutely spook it and he's changing zip codes, and then the wake will move a little bit faster. But a mullet, the wakes are V-shaped, very pronounced V-shaped, and usually they are moving very quickly. Mullet will get out of there very, very quickly. So the next time you guys are out on the water and you're looking at these wakes and you're like, oh, I'm not really sure what that is, look for either the V shape for a mullet or a big wide U shape for redfish. Okay. So, that's a little a tip for you guys the next time you're out, really learn how to read the water when you're doing that. So the area I was at, it was wind protected, and I started to see, some redfish moving around, and I knew there was probably a small school there. So what I did is I ended up tying on a voodoo shrimp. Again, you guys know how I love voodoo shrimp. I had one tied on and I started to work it really slow, kind of bouncing it, sticking on the outer edges of where I thought the school was at. And I had no takers whatsoever. Now, either the fish were, quote, lockjaw and they weren't keying in on shrimp. I don't know. So I ended up putting that away and bringing back out the paddle tail and swimming it around. I kind of moved away from that spot, swimming that little paddle tail, and bang, picked up a 16-inch little redfish. Then, off of another little corner, just down a little bit further, slow rolling the little paddle tail, a small flounder picked it up. I think he was probably maybe 14 inches. So now, picking up those three fish, I knew what the pattern was. It was small paddle tail moving on the bottom. And I never even picked a shrimp up the rest of the day. So I fished around a little bit. I picked up another couple of flounder in a couple of areas, which is great. When you're hunting redfish, flounder are kind of your bycatch because redfish are on the bottom, they're bottom feeders, and you'll pick up a lot of flounder. And I did. I picked up some nice flounder. I think I picked up a 16 and maybe a 15, and then the little short one, again, maybe like 14 or something like that. I can't remember. But, and then we were pushing in towards high tide. High tide was around noon. Excuse me, guys. High tide was around noon. And so I was pushing my way back and I was crossing a flat area. And I was working a grass line, just kind of, messing around a little bit. And I tied on a Z-Man 4-inch jerk shad. And it's the jerk shad in the deal color. Here he is right here. And I had him tied on a 1/6 ounce finesse head. I think I've got one right over here. Matter of fact, if you guys give me 1 second as I jump out of the screen here, but here's the little finesse eye. Don't know if you can see that real good, but that's the 1/6 ounce finesse eye. And I was just pitching it around the grass and letting it kind of settle down, and I had it rigged weedless. So, I wasn't really getting hung up too bad into the oyster or in the grass, and that's why I rigged it up weedless. And I threw at this one little grass point and bam, picked up a red. Ended up being about 21 inches. It was a great fish. He had a ton of fight. He was fighting like a 28. I mean, it probably took me 2 or 3 minutes to get him in. He was bulldogging me and pulling me around, and I was just like, well, gotta wear him out. I can't pull him in green. So, I had some fun with him and took a couple pictures. And a matter of fact, the thumbnail for this video and DCO Live is that redfish. Matter of fact, I have got it right here. Let me flash it up here. So there's the red. I keep forgetting I got pictures down here. So there's the redfish, and he was great, man. He was a ton of fun. And matter of fact, he was the last fish I caught that day. And again, it was just kind of one of those, hey, I'm heading in, bonus fish at the end of the day. So, ended up, I think, with, 3 reds, 3 flounder, fun day. It was beautiful out. I mean, you can see in the background just a few little puffy clouds and blue sky. And Steve just flashed up there. He said, may still be a little early for shrimp. Yeah, I'm seeing small shrimp bust. I have thrown the salty Ned shrimp quite a bit, for that smaller profile. I am seeing shrimp up in the creeks and around grass. So, they are keying in on some shrimp. At least that's what I'm seeing. I've caught some fish in the last few weeks on the salty Ned, and I believe Heath has too. I think he commented when he was on last week, that, or maybe 2 weeks ago, about catching some fish on the salty Ned shrimp. So yeah, the shrimp are out there. The redfish are keying in on it. That's at least what I'm seeing, in that Murrells Inlet area. So I'm gonna keep throwing it around and keep tying them on. Hey Henry, how you doing, buddy? It's been a while. Glad you jumped on. He threw a question up there, and it says, how long does it take you to paddle out to the area near the jetties? So to get out to the jetties, it's probably a good 30 minutes. And if you catch the tide right and it pushes you out that way, it's about 30 minutes. So, keep that 30 to 40 minute time frame in your head to get out there towards the jetties. And then Everett just popped on, and he said 18-inch trout today on top water. Man, I'm jealous. I gotta tie on a top water. I'm going, this weekend, and I'm getting my gear all ready to go. So what top water did you use, Everett, if you don't mind sharing and throwing it up there? But like you guys, I tell you guys all the time that I'm not the best topwater fisherman. I love it. I love seeing the explosions, but man, I love topwater. He said, yeah, I'm doing well on the salty Ned shrimp. Yep, absolutely. And then Steve jumped back on and said, all my fish have been on mid-Hayden like stuff, been whacking them on twitch baits. Sweet, man. Yeah. So the twitch baits, so are you talking the mirror lures? Is that what you're talking about? And paddle tails. Okay, cool. Captain Bob just jumped on. Hey, Captain Bob. Glad you made time to jump on here. Sorry about that. I'm reading a couple other little comments. He said, hang on, let me pop up Captain Bob here. He said, had a great time to throw shrimp baits. Oh man, I just got a bunch. You just got moved down here. Hold on one second. I got to scroll you back down. Sorry about that. He said, once the shrimp start to flood the waters, it'll be tough to compete with them. Throw that shrimp now for sure. Yeah, and it may not. I think, Steve, you're more fishing Georgetown and maybe a little bit south, so maybe they're just not keyed on shrimp yet. But I know where I've been, the shrimp bite, they're rooting around for them right now. So Steve said a Uzuri topwater, and then Everett was using a Rebel Pop R White in white color. So cool, man. I appreciate you guys sharing that. That's awesome. That is really awesome. So good comments tonight. I appreciate you guys throwing those in there. Excuse me one more time. Yeah, I'm not drinking any bourbon or beer tonight. I had Bourbon Club last night, and needless to say, it was a good time. So I am hydrating tonight, guys. So that was my last fishing mission that I went out. Matter of fact, I'm editing up that video now, and hopefully Saturday morning I'll get that kicked out, so you guys can kind of check out the fishing action there. So let's talk about the weekend. We're about 20 minutes into this, and let's talk about what the weekend looks like. I don't know if anybody is going out tomorrow, which will be Friday. I know that the wind is really going to be down. If there's a day to go out, if you don't want to fight any type of wind, it's going to be tomorrow. Supposed to be a really nice day. But Saturday, we're looking at temperatures lows 65 to 79. So it's going to be perfect. Saturday, I have seen 40% chance of rain. So if you guys have seen anything different, let me know. And yeah, so about 40% chance of rain. I think that's more in the afternoon. And then I'm seeing 5 to 12 mile an hour winds out of the southwest. Okay. So that is that, pre-front condition with those winds coming out of the southwest. And then on Sunday, we are looking at temperature ranges 63 to 73. I saw 0% chance of rain. So that front pushes through. The wind is now, I saw 9 to 12 miles an hour northeast. So now we're on the backside of that front that's coming through, and that wind is starting to come down off of that high. So yeah, so that's, you can definitely tell there's a front coming through right there. Within 24 hours, it's in a totally different direction. So, keep an eye on that. The tides, I've got the tide chart here, which I did remember. So here is Friday right here. So you can see the first high tide is going to be right there at daybreak, right at sunrise. And then low tide is going to be, what is that? Almost 2 o'clock, 1:15, 1:30, something like that. And then the second high tide right at about sunset. And then it's just going to move over. Here is Saturday, and then here is Sunday. So you guys who like to get out, first thing in the morning, like me, I love fishing in the morning because I've got things to do in the afternoons. With it being high tide, I am going to be fishing grass lines and flats to start out. And then as the water starts dropping out, then, I'm going to be getting into the creeks where the water is going to start to concentrate these fish down in towards the middle of these creeks. So, yeah, so that's going to be my plan, going out for the weekend is grass lines, working stuff weedless, throwing little paddle tails, throw in, some voodoo shrimp or any type of a shrimp imitation, doing things like that. Yeah, Steve, Northeast, the beast. Yeah, man, you got that right. And then Dean said, but I'm driving down from Raleigh, North Carolina area, the state park Saturday through Wednesday. Great, man. That's awesome. So yeah, the fishing should be great. I think you're hitting it at the right time if you plan on getting out there. So yeah, man, that's awesome. So yeah, if any of other you guys are heading out this weekend, throw a thumbs up into the comments so we can kind of see who was all going out. And I know that I'm going to probably be targeting again some redfish, and probably picking up some flounder. I may throw that topwater first thing. Maybe, Everett, I think you've got me itching to go ahead and tie on that that top water and see if I can't, crack a couple of trout. And you never know, maybe even a redfish, pull him out of the grass or something. So Dean, let me pop him up there. It says, Chris, I don't ever see you using popping corks. Yeah, I do every once in a while. I'm just not a popping cork kind of guy. Where I would use a popping cork, one, if it's a really tough day, high tide, a little bit of chop on the water, where I want to have a little bit of commotion to attract some fish in. That's when I would throw, a popping cork and almost kind of work it like a lure, work it back fairly quickly, popping every couple of seconds, maybe have, oh gosh, maybe like a voodoo shrimp underneath there. That's probably what I would use most of the time, is probably a voodoo shrimp right along the grass, or even some type of a weedless shrimp if I'm throwing it up in around those grass lines. So yeah, that's pretty much what I would be using. And yeah, I just don't use a popping cork. If I'm trying to attract fish, I will do other things to pull them in besides a popping cork. I've really been getting into using the spinner baits, the Redfish Magic I've been throwing quite a bit. When I go down to Charleston, I pick up quite a few redfish using the spinners. Now down in Charleston, the water is usually a little bit murkier, a little bit muddier, and the flash of that spinner, I think, really attracts in that thump, so they can use, maybe a little bit of their sight, maybe a little bit of the thump of that spinner bait on their lateral line to have them draw in. But yeah, I really like throwing the spinner bait down there in Charleston. I usually try to pack 2 or 3 now if I'm heading down to Charleston. And a matter of fact, probably in the next couple of weeks, I'll be heading down that way and, starting to fish some areas. Speaking of Charleston, does anybody know the status of the Paradise Landing? Is it getting close to being done, or does anybody know about that? So let me know if you guys do. Henry, best of luck. Keep the awesome vids coming. Hey, appreciate that, Henry. Thank you much. Yeah, it's just it's a labor of love, and I love doing it. It's one of these things where trying to put together a story of 5, 6, 7 hours of fishing down to anywhere between 12 and 30 minutes, trying to pick out the highlights, any little comments here and there, but Henry, I do appreciate it. Thanks, man. But don't forget the chatterbaits. Yeah, I don't throw chatterbaits very often. Steve, I think you do. But yeah, I hear a lot of guys throwing chatterbaits. And again, a lot of these bass baits, last year I threw around a, gosh, what was it? A square bill, and, never got anything, but, throwing a lipless crankbait, the chatterbaits, the spinner baits, redfish will hit those things, they're bass. I mean, you throw them. A lot of guys will come out and be like, I don't saltwater fish. What should I throw? Throw your bass gear. Absolutely. A trout trick looks like a worm. Throw a worm on a hook and throw it down there and bounce it around. So I've picked up flounder on those trout tricks. You get it on the bottom and they will hit it. Captain Bob said the number 1 top water bait for him is the Head and Super saltwater spook. So yeah, that's the one that I usually throw. I love the Head and Spooks or the Spook Juniors. But yeah, man, those are awesome. And yeah, I think I will try the chatterbaits the next time I head down towards Charleston. I'll have one tied on there. So yeah, man, good comments this week, guys. So yeah, I appreciate it, guys. We're coming up on that 30 minutes. If you have another quick question, go ahead and throw it in there. But guys, I appreciate you. Again, I'm still throwing things out there on the DCO Live on Spotify. I am really kicking around trying to put out some new content, stuff that I am not premiering here on DCO Live, but new fresh stuff over on DCO Live Spotify. So, I'm trying to kick that around, maybe get that. And so, I would do a podcast one night, upload it, and then have this one uploaded a day or two after, DCO Live comes on. So, guys, next time we talk, it'll be, I think, right at the 1st of May. So, I've got something cooking in my mind to do next week. I hope I can put it all together, and I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag, but we'll see if I can put it all together for next week. But guys, again, I really do appreciate you taking the time out and jumping on here, especially with the NFL draft. I know a lot of you guys are sports fans, football fans, so I really do appreciate it. And guys, if you don't have anything else, I appreciate you. And we'll see you next week. Again, same bat time, same bat channel, and we'll do it all again. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.